Good morning. I'm Amanda Carruthers. I'm a speaker and coach and trainer. I've done this for a long time. And if you're new here today, I am so thankful you're here. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel so that we can keep in touch. You can stay in the conversation. And if you have been here before, thank you for showing up. I absolutely love talking to you and I love your comments. So I wanted to continue the emotional conversation because it is a really good topic that we could all use some skill building around. So I want to say this in the way that I'm framing up this whole talk actually is not that anybody is bad or wrong or mean or a bad person. What I am really talking about is that we could all use some skill building around our emotional landscape and our emotional territory and how we are doing emotions with other people. Because that's what really gets us into trouble, is that we haven't developed enough skills in communication and understanding our emotional awareness, and that creates conflict with other people and makes our lives hard. So I wanted to address some of the topics that I see. Specifically, the conversation I'm in, if you saw my last video, was about emotional maturity on level 1 and level 2. And just to remind you, level 1 is where we experience an emotion and then we express the emotion without anything else in between. What happens when we're in level 1 emotion, whether you're a male or female, if there's no cognition or higher awareness of the emotion going on and we just express the emotion, we actually hold the world hostage. Let me tell you more about this. If somebody goes from being a sane, normal, everyday kind of person having their coffee, and then they flip into some kind of anger or some kind of emotion out of nowhere, it makes everybody jump, get surprised, and wonder where that came from. And that puts people in fight, flight, or freeze. That's the experience of it. The emotion comes out of nowhere. Nobody can guess. There's no pattern, there's no sign, there's no indication ahead of time. And so it makes people jump. And then if that continues to happen, then people are aware of the pattern. The pattern is there's no indication. It might happen anytime. We don't know what will cause it. And so let's always be careful. And that's what makes people around this emotionally expressive person feel like they're walking on eggshells, and they're being held emotionally hostage because of this person and the way that they're behaving. I find this in work environments, corporate environments, environments where there's a boss and subordinates, male-female relationships, regardless, friendships. What it really is just an unemotionally aware person that hasn't learned the skills they need to actually navigate their own internal emotional feelings. Again, let me preface, because I really want you to hear me right. I'm not calling that person bad or wrong, and we shouldn't either. It's somebody that just hasn't learned the skills they need in order to accommodate or be part of the environment as we need it, as a social structure, as a group tribe. It's just one of those skills that we need to all have. You can hear the fire engines in the background, I think. Sorry. So there's that emotional holding people hostage. That's emotional level 1. Okay, men do it, women do it. I know in my last video I was specifically talking to women, but I do want to just say that this happens to anybody. Okay, I was calling out women specifically because I was watching a reality TV show where women were behaving that way, and that's what inspired the video. But really, it's anybody can be here. The second level of emotional maturity simply is that an emotion happens inside, something in the environment triggers an emotion. That emotion becomes conscious. We start to go, oh wait, I'm experiencing an emotion. So we actually bounce out of that expressive maturity level 1. We bounce into level 2 and we go, wow, there's an emotion happening. And the second question is, where do I need to go from here? And that question alone starts to allow us to have power over the emotion instead of the emotion having power over us. So level 2 emotion is simply saying, okay, if you did the same scenario, I had an emotional trigger happen, something in the environment happened, it made me get crazy or feel something or want to behave a certain way, want to act a certain way. But instead of doing that, I took it up to my thinking. I started to recognize that was what was going on. I asked myself, what needs to happen next? And then I start to sit with that information and I trust that information. I'm not expressing it into the world. I'm taking in and integrating what's just happened. When I can sit with it for the amount of time that it needs, if it's a less intense emotion, it will take less time. If it's a more intense emotion, it means it has more thoughts and feelings wrapped into it, and it takes a longer time to really digest and pull apart. Once I can do that, then I can communicate what's going on as opposed to express it into the environment. This is where a healthier norm of being in emotions are. And in our daily world, this is what keeps us together. As opposed to, and this is where I was bringing women in, because I've just seen more women do it than men. Not that men don't do it. I'm also speaking from my own place. I'm a female. This is the way I acted growing up until I learned a new way of doing it. So I would get angry or upset with the person, and then I would stomp out of the room. And I think I got that from watching TV, because that's what the TV shows do. Or I would get upset and then I would quiet down and I would make my man, whoever my man was, whoever I was dating at the time in my young ways, um, try to figure out what my emotion was, try to figure out how to fix me or make me happy or make me change my emotion. I would make them do that, which means that I was not being emotionally responsible for my own emotions. I had to learn it the hard way. I had to figure out that my emotions are my own emotions. They're not anybody else's. And they're there for me to pick through and find the pearls, because there's always pearls. And then once I can find the pearls, I start to understand myself better. And that understanding gives me more personal power to behave in the world and make better choices. So I wanted to share this with you. Now, level 3, this is what I didn't talk about in the other video. So level 3. Level 3 emotions is where you don't really you feel the emotion come on, but it really doesn't shock your system. It doesn't overtake your system. You're still stable in your body system, in your mind system. You're still centered and mindful, but the emotion comes in just sort of like a wave. Whatever kind of emotion it is, there's a little bit of the witness that already comes in and goes, oh, that's interesting. What's that about? But it's not overtaken. There's not a lot of work. It just sort of is what it is. It's a new piece of information. It can sit with it, and no one on the outside world recognizes anything that's going on. You haven't changed personalities. You haven't changed moods. You haven't reacted different. You haven't gone white. You haven't gotten paralyzed. Nothing has changed with you. All this stuff is happening within you. And at the same time, because it's such a practiced muscle, you can still sit with it or defer to it later, when the situation actually warrants you to sit and process what's going on. And then you can take apart the information, find out what's true, find the pearls, and then go back to the conversations you were in and really speak your truth. Now, that is a very practiced skill, but that's where we're all needing to head if we want to have really close relationships. When we bow out, act aggressively, shock people with our emotions, express without any cognitive understanding, we're keeping the world away from us. We're causing more suffering for ourselves without even knowing it. We're causing more cleanup for ourselves. We're creating waves in the environment that then we have to go and apologize for, take responsibility for, clean up, lose relationships, whatever ends up happening in that uncognitive expressed emotion. So I don't want to be too complicated about this. It's, as you can tell, it's very subtle nuance of how we work with internal parts of ourselves and then how we work with the external world. And it's our responsibility to be a mature adult to work with all of those emotions on the inside first before we bring them onto anyone else. I've traveled a lot. At this point, I've been to 53 different countries. I've worked with 144 different nationalities. And I only say that because the thing that I've gotten from all of this is that every human being that I've ever met, any part in the world, we all face the same emotional trials. We all face spouse issues, children issues, kids going to college issues, financial issues, religious belief issues. We all face the same things. We're all human. And I have just committed to helping other people learn from my mistakes so that no one else has to be on the same road I've been on. Um, but also to naming what we're all facing, because at the end of the day, we all have skin, two eyes, two ears, a mouth, and we all have to make it in this world somehow. So I hope that this information for you is helpful. And if you have questions about where I'm going with this or a specific circumstance or something, go ahead and chime into my comments, because I would love to come back and clarify where I haven't been clear, it hasn't made sense to you. um, I found this information to be really helpful, and it's something that I continue to teach people, which tells me that there's a need for it. Especially when I watch reality TV shows and um, I see a couple really fight, not because they love each other or they don't love each other. They usually do. At least the reality TV shows I've been watching lately, they do love each other. They just don't have the communication or the emotional skills to know what's going on with themselves. And so they're breaking up their relationship, or they're causing distance with their other. And I'm sure that's not what they want. They just don't know any different. All right. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I look forward to talking to you again soon.